A very good morning and hearty welcome to one and all. I, Janvi Gupta, along with my classmates of class 10th F, are here to conduct the special assembly on the feast of Saint Ignatius of Loyola. Saint Ignatius was a Spanish knight who founded the Congregation of Society of Jesus, popularly known as Jesuits. His feast is marked on July 31, the day he died. He was one of the most influential figures in the Counter Reformation. Known for its missionary, educational, and charitable works, the Jesuit order was a leading force in the modernizing of the Roman Catholic Church. Now, let us start the day by this prayer dedicated to Saint Ignatius.
All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small. All things wise and wonderful, they could not make them all. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small. All things white and wonderful, the good God made them all. Each little flower that opens, each little bird that sings, He made their glowing colors, He made their tiny wings. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small. All things white and wonderful, the good God made them all. The purple hair that mountains, the river running by, the sunset and the morning that brightens up the sky. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small. All things wise and wonderful, the good God made them
Now, I would like to invite Kanupriya Maheshwari to elaborate on the early life of Saint Ignatius of Loyola.
Ignatius of Loyola, whose real name was Inigo, was born in the castle of Loyola in the Basque country of Spain in 1491. Ignatius was the youngest of the 13 children. Ignatius hardly knew his mother as she died when he was a child, and his father died when he was 16, so his elder brothers raised him. Ignatius spent most of his youth serving in the court and in the pursuit of chivalry. While serving in the court, Ignatius developed the taste of living like a flashy lifestyle. During that time, like any youth of that time, he became addicted to gambling, dressing up, and swordplay. Ignatius, as a young man, always desired to win battles, but all his ambitious dream was shattered after he got wounded in the Battle of Pamplona in 1521. In May 1521, the armies of Spain were fighting against the French to defend the fortress of the town of Pamplona, and Ignatius was part of that Spanish troop. The Spanish forces were outnumbered, and the Spanish army chief decided to surrender. But Ignatius convinced all to continue the fight for the honor of Spain, if not for victory. During that battle, a French cannonball hit Ignatius, injuring one leg and breaking the other. The French soldiers carried Ignatius to his home for convalescence rather than to a prison. It was during that healing period when Ignatius went through several hours of pain, prayers, reading, and reflections. His leg got set but did not heal. It grew worse, and the doctors told him that he should prepare for death. But on the feast day of Saint Peter and Paul on 29 June, a surprising turn took place. His legs started curing. However, during that long period of recuperation at Loyola, Ignatius was terribly bored. In order to avoid boredom, he asked for some romantic novels to read. But unfortunately, there were none in the castle. Instead, he was given of the copy of the life of Christ and a book on the saints. More he read and thought of the saints and the life of Christ, the more he experienced peace and satisfaction. Eventually, when having completely converted from his old desires and dreams and worldly conquests, Ignatius left the castle of Loyola in March 1522 to seek and serve God alone in life. This event closed the first period of his life, during which he was, on his own admission, a man given to the vanities of the world, whose chief delight consisted in martial exercises, with a great and vain desire to win renown.
Thank you, Kanupriya, for the above information of Saint Ignatius of Loyola. Now, I would like to invite Kirti Kaloria to tell us about his spiritual knowledge.
It is the second period of Ignatius's life in which he turned toward a saintly life. After a treatment at Pamplona, he was transported to Loyola in June 1521. There his condition became so serious that for a time it was thought he would die. When out of danger, he learned his bones were not setting properly. Rather than go through life disfigured and limping, he chose to undergo painful surgery to correct blunders made when the bone was first set. The result was convalescence of many weeks. While recuperation, Ignatius had a series of religious experiences that changed the course of his life. He wanted to pass time by reading books, but he found Life of Christ and a book on the lives of the saints the only reading matter the castle afforded. He turned to them for a lack of anything more exciting to read. In the early stages of this enforced reading, his attention was centered on the saints. The version of the lives of the saints he was reading contained prologues to the various lives by a Cistercian monk who conceived the service of God as a holy chivalry. This view of life profoundly moved and attracted Ignatius. After much reflection, he resolved to imitate the holy austerities of the saints in order to do penance for his sins. When he found that he had committed so many sins that he could not count all them, a priest suggested writing them out. In February 1522, Ignatius bade farewell to his family and went to Montserrat, a place of pilgrimage in northeastern Spain. He spent 3 days in confessing the sins of his whole life, hung his sword and dagger near the statue of Virgin Mary as symbol of his abandoned ambitions, and clothed in sackcloth, spent the night of March 24 in prayer. The next day he went to Manresa, a town 48 kilometers, that is 30 miles from Barcelona, to pass the decisive months of his career from March 25, 1522 to mid February 1523. During this time, he put his ideas on paper, forming the background on spiritual exercises, which was published in 1548. This short but influential book outlines a 30-day regimen of prayer and self abasement that focuses on devotion to God. Daily he attended Mass and spent 7 hours in prayer, often in a cave outside Manresa. The sojourn at Manresa was marked by spiritual trials as well as by joy and interior light. While sitting one day on the banks of the Cardenas River, the eyes of his understanding began to open without seeing any vision. He understood and knew many things, as well spiritual things as things of the faith. At Manresa, he sketched the fundamentals of his little book, The Spiritual Exercises. It was approved by Pope Paul III in 1548. The Spiritual Exercises is a manual of spiritual alms containing a vital and dynamic system of spirituality. During his lifetime, Ignatius used it to give spiritual retreats to others, especially to his followers. The booklet is indeed an adaptation of the Gospels for such retreats. The remainder to a decisive period was devoted to a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. Ignatius left Barcelona in 1523 and traveling by way of Rome, Venice, Cyprus, Syria. From there he walked to Jerusalem to visit Christian holy places which were under control of Muslim Turks. He would have liked to settle there permanently, but the Franciscan custodians of the shrines of the Latin Church would not listen to this plan. After visiting Bethany, the Mount of Olives, Bethlehem, the Jordan River, and the Mount of Temptation, Ignatius left Palestine on October 3 and passing through Cyprus and Venice, reached Barcelona in March 1524.
Thank you, Kirti. Now I would like to invite Eric Teju Thomas to tell us about his period of study.
After the pilgrim had learned that it was God's will that he should not stay in Jerusalem, he pondered in his heart what he should do and finally decided to study for a time in order to be able to help souls. Ignatius, in his autobiography, refers to himself as the pilgrim, describes his decision to acquire as good education as the circumstances permitted. He probably could have reached the priesthood in a few years. He chose to defer his goal for more than 12 years and to undergo the drudgery of the classroom at an age when most men have long since finished their training. Perhaps his military career had taught him the value of careful preparation. At any rate, he was convinced that a well trained man would accomplish in a short time what one without training would never accomplish. Ignatius studied at Barcelona for nearly 2 years. In 1526, he transferred to Alcala. By this time, he had acquired followers, and the little group had assumed a distinctive garb. But Ignatius soon fell under suspicion and was imprisoned and tried. Although found innocent, he left Alcala for Salamanca. There not only was he imprisoned, but his companions were also apprehended. Again he won acquittal, but was forbidden to teach until he had finished his studies. This prohibition induced Ignatius to leave his disciples and Spain. He arrived in Paris on 2nd February 1528 and remained there as a student until 1535. He lived on alms, and in 1528 and 1529 he went to Flanders to beg from Spanish merchants. In 1530 he went to England for the same purpose. In Paris, Ignatius soon had another group of disciples whose manner of living caused such a stir that he had to explain himself to the religious authorities. This episode finally convinced him that he must abstain from public religious endeavor until he reached the priesthood. During his long stay in the French capital, Ignatius won the coveted M.A. at the College des Saint Barbe. He also gathered the companions who were to be co-founders with him of the Society of Jesus. Among them, Saint Francis Xavier, who became one of the order's greatest missionaries on 15th August 1534. He led the little band to nearby Montmartre, where they bound themselves by vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, though as yet without the express purpose of founding a religious order.
Thank you, Eric. Now I would like to invite Sia Gupta to tell us about the ordination of Saint Ignatius of Loyola.
Early in 1535, before the completion of his theological studies, Ignatius left Paris for reasons of health. He spent more than 6 months in Spain and then went to Bologna and Venice, where he studied privately. On 8th January 1537, his Persian companions joined him in Venice. All were eager to make the pilgrimage to Jerusalem, but war between Venice and the Turkish Empire rendered this impossible. Ignatius and most of his companions were ordained on 24 June 1537. There followed 18 months, during which they acquired experience in the ministry while also devoting time to prayer. During these months, although he did not as yet say Mass, Ignatius had one of the decisive experiences in his life. He revealed to his companions that on a certain day, while in prayer, he seemed to see Christ with a cross on his shoulder and beside him the Eternal Father, who said, I wish you to take this man for your servant. And Jesus took him and said, My will is that you should serve us. On Christmas Day 1538, Ignatius said his first Mass at the Church of Saint Mary Major in Rome. This ends the third period of his life, that of his studies, which were far from a formality. Diego Lainez, a co-founder of the Society of Jesus and an intelligent observer, judged that despite handicaps, Ignatius had great diligence as any of his fellow students. He certainly became, in the difficult field of ascetic and mystical theology, one of the surest of Catholic guides.
Thank you, Sia. Now I would like to invite Nitya Sharma to tell us about his foundings of the Jesuit order.
Founding of the Jesuit Order. In Rome, the Society of Jesus, a Roman Catholic missionary organization, receives its charter from Pope Paul III. The Jesuit order played an important role in the Counter-Reformation and eventually succeeded in converting millions around the world to Catholicism. The Jesuit movement was founded by Ignatius de Loyola, a Spanish soldier turned priest, in August 1534. The first Jesuits, Ignatius and 6 of his students, took vows of poverty and chastity and made plans to work for the conversion of Muslims. If travel to Holy Land was not possible, they vowed to offer themselves to Pope for apostolic work. Unable to travel to Jerusalem because of the Turkish wars, they went to Rome instead to meet with the Pope and request permission to form a new religious order. In September 1540, Pope Paul III approved Ignatius' outline of the Society of Jesus, and the Jesuit order was born. Under Ignatius' charismatic leadership, the Society of Jesus grew quickly. Jesuit missionaries played a leading role in the Counter-Reformation and won back many of the European faithful who had been lost to Protestantism. In Ignatius' lifetime, Jesuits were also dispatched to India, Brazil, and the Congo region and Ethiopia. Education was of utmost importance to Jesuits, and in Rome, Ignatius founded the Roman College, later on called the Gregorian University, and Germanicum, a school for German priests. The Jesuits also ran several charitable organizations, such as one for the former prostitutes and one for the converted Jews. When Ignatius de Loyola died in July 1556, there were more than 1,000 Jesuit priests. During the next century, the Jesuits set up ministries around the globe. The Black Robes, as they were known in Native America, often preceded other Europeans in their infiltration of foreign lands and societies. The life of a Jesuit was one of immense risk, and thousands of priests were persecuted or killed by foreign authorities hostile to their mission of conversion. However, in some nations, such as India and China, the Jesuits were welcomed as men of wisdom and science. With the rise of nationalism in the 18th century, most European countries suppressed the Jesuits, and in 1773, Pope Clement XV dissolved the order under pressure from the Bourbon monarchs. However, in 1814, Pope Pius VII gave in to popular demand and re-established the Jesuits as an order, and they continue their missionary work to this day. Ignatius de Loyola was canonized a Catholic saint in 1622.
Thank you, Nitya. Now I would like to invite Somil Seni to tell us about his Jesuit constitution.
Society of Jesus is also known as Jesuit Order. The Society of Jesus is a religious order of the Catholic Church headquartered in Rome. It was founded by Ignatius of Loyola and 6 companions with the approval of Pope Paul III in 1540. A member is called a Jesuit. The society is engaged in 112 nations. Jesuits also give retreats, minister in hospitals and parishes, sponsor direct social ministries, and promote ecumenical dialogue. The headquarters of the society is in Rome. Members of the Society of Jesus are expected to accept orders to go anywhere in the world where they might be required to live in extreme conditions. This was so because Ignatius, its leading founder, was a nobleman who had a military background. Accordingly, the opening lines of the founding document declared that the society was founded for whoever desires to serve as a soldier of God, to strive especially for the defense and for the progress of souls in Christian life and doctrine. Jesuits are thus sometimes referred to as God's soldiers, God's marines, or the company. The society participated in the Counter Reformation and later in the implementation of the Second Vatican Council. Ignatius of Loyola, a Navarre nobleman from northern Spain, founded the society after discerning his spiritual vocation while recovering from a wound sustained in the Battle of Pamplona. He composed the spiritual exercises to help others follow the teaching of Jesus Christ. Ignatius' plan of the order's organization was approved by Pope Paul III in 1540 by a bull containing the formula of the institute. On 15 August 1534, Ignatius of Loyola and six others, mostly of Castilian origin, all students at the University of Paris, met in Montmartre outside Paris to pronounce the religious vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. Ignatius' six companions were Francisco Xavier from Navarre, Alfonso Salmeron, Diego Lainez, Nicolas Bordbella from Castile, Peter Fabre from Savoy, and Simão Rodrigues from Portugal. They called themselves the Compañía de Jesus and also Amigos en el Señor, or Friends in the Lord, because they felt they were placed together by Christ. The name company had echoes of the military as well as of discipleship. The Companions of Jesus. The Spanish company would be translated into Latin as societies like in socius, a partner or comrade. From this came Society of Jesus SJ, by which they would be known more widely.
Thank you so much, Sani, for enlightening us with the Jesuit constitutions of Saint Ignatius of Loyola. Now, I would like to end the assembly with a concluding